Hey guys, welcome back to Winding Road Magazine. I am Tedward, and this is actually my mother's E90 M3 competition package. The competition package, or ZCP package, was only a $2,500 option back in these days, and it didn't give you a lot, but it did differentiate the car just a bit. So physically, it gives you these 19-inch wheels. They have slightly larger offsets, so you can see a little bit of dish in the back as well. And that gives the car a wider stance. And that's really the reason why these cars look just a bit meaner than the standard cars. In addition to that, the springs are 10 millimeters lower, which gives the car a little more of a drop. But if you were buying an E90 or E92 M3 anyway, and you were going to modify it, that's not necessarily worth $2,500 to you. You might have put on a coilover suspension. So, in addition to these physical modifications that come with the ZCP package, there's also electronic things that get changed. So, first, the DSC. You get a little more aggressive slip angle when you're in MDM mode. That's going to allow the car to slip just a bit more than it normally would with the standard car. And the EDC, the electronic damper control, is also modified to be a little more stiff and track friendly. And personally, even though I own an E92, the E90, this four-door, this is the look. I just think this car really has some road presence. You get nice accessibility with having 4 doors, rear seats, super nice to jump into. This is really like a normal family car, and there's plenty of room. So I'm 5'9", 5'10", that's in my seating position. I've got plenty of room back here. Definitely a good grocery getter. This car is equipped with the sunroof, and if you notice in the speakers, that gold, that tells you that's the premium audio. So if you are hunting for these cars and you're trying to figure out, hey, what options does this really have? Those are a couple of signals to what it is. The real money makers on these cars are gonna be the slick top, so that's no sunroof. The manual, this is a DCT. I'll talk about that in a minute. And if it had the speed cloth seats, this would be a real rare gem. So I apologize, it's a little dusty in here. This car doesn't get out much because it's not the primary daily for my mom. Actually, I think they bought it with 48,000 miles about 5 years ago, and there's only about 50,000 on it now. So this is actually pretty interesting. Unlike my car, this E90 is completely stock. Now, my car is mostly stock except for the tune. So there's definitely a noticeable lack of power compared to my car in this one. But that's not terrible. I don't mind that. The thing that's most notable is the transmission tune, because this does not have a transmission tune. This is completely stock. And coming back to this car, I can absolutely see why certain people don't really like the DCT. My DCT with its GTS tune, it's very snappy. When you pull that selector, it shifts immediately. With this, it's certainly not slow, but it doesn't have that jolt. It doesn't have that fierce jolt. And I am still in a lower mode. We can increase that, and we'll do that when we get out to the highway. But I think if you are looking for these cars, one of the first things I would do, don't even worry about engine tuning. That 30 horsepower, it's nice. You won't really notice it. It's not going to change your life. But what will change the car completely is that DCT tune, especially on the downshifts. The competition package ride quality, it is noticeably stiffer. It's not outrageous, but it's definitely there. And The other benefit, though, is it feels tighter. I feel like this car's a little dartier, and it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint whether or not that's a factor of being the four-door car, or if that's just because of that 10mm suspension drop. And then when you want to have some fun, you've got this great 8,000 RPM V8. Make sure no one's going to hop out of that car first. Nice brakes as well. This car has really nice brakes, which, you know, for me, I run this on the track, my car, not this one, but I don't have anything different to the brakes other than fluid and pads. The stock rotors and stock calipers have plenty of heat dissipation and bite to do, you know, typical HPDE track drives. So certainly not an endurance drive, but you can get away with it for, you know, 20-minute sessions for sure. Let's do a little brake check. Let's do it from about 60. Pretty nice. And one of the things that you can actually do when you tune the car is you can ask ABS to engage a little later. BMW kind of programs these to engage a little too early. So although the car still stops very well, you can in fact get the car to stop better by just pushing back that threshold of where ABS will actually start to kick in, which is a godsend on the track. You don't necessarily notice it on the street, I promise you. It stops. Another thing to keep in mind before we get on the highway is that this power button does not give you more power. So if someone's telling you that the power button gives you more power, they probably sell essential oils, and you should just absolutely not listen to that individual. They do not know what they're talking about. It just sharpens the throttle response. That's it. All right, we want to know, is this cop getting on the highway that I'm going onto? The answer appears to be yes. This is where the car really shines. So you'll notice that we've got an electronic dipstick. This is probably one of my least favorite parts of the car. It makes it very frustrating because if you are like me and you're a DIY kind of person, we'll move over to this police officer and make sure that everyone else also can. You probably like to be able to, you know, slowly fill your oil. This car takes about 9 liters. So you start filling it and, ooh, what did he hit? That's not great. So you start filling it, and then as you get closer to the capacity, you're going to want to start checking it manually, like with a dipstick, and say like, hey, am I there yet? And again, this is a BMW M3 with a V8. That, you better get real familiar with that symbol. With this car, it takes quite a long time to warm up enough for that oil level to actually even display. So you'll see like a ticking clock for a very long time, which is frustrating because it takes 8.8 liters. So, you know, obviously you're never going to release all of the oil in the system when you drain it with the two drain plugs on this oil pan. So you've got to be cautious. You kind of put in 8 1/4, let it warm up, run it for a little while, gently, find out what's going on, and then kind of adjust accordingly. But if it looks low, don't go and add an entire liter, because it's actually kind of that's not equivalent. It might even say add 1 liter on it. Don't. Go slow. Always do like a 1/4 or a 1/2 at a time and see how it reacts. It will vary. You don't want to overfill it. The other thing about this car on the highway is, yes, it comfortably cruises at 75, 80 miles per hour, but this 7-speed DCT does not have an overdrive. This 7th gear is a 1-to-1 gear ratio, so you're always running a little bit high on the revs. I mean, at 80 miles an hour for a car that can basically almost go 200 miles an hour, you're already at 31, 3200 RPM. That's because it revs out so high. So when you do max it out, you've got 8,000 RPM to play with. You're not topping the car out at 6,500 or 7,000 RPM like you would on kind of a normal engine. But I'll also show you what I mean about lack of torque. So we're in 7th gear. Let's say someone in front of us is going 70 miles an hour and we want to pass them. That's wide open throttle. It takes a little bit of effort to get this to get up and go. But if we do that again and we drop 2 gears, we're off quite a bit faster. So you've really got to play that game. And you might even want to drop 3 gears. I still wasn't really in the power band. This car doesn't wake up until around 5,000 to 5,500 RPM. And all the magic is over 6,000 RPM. That's where this thing really sinks. And I've seen a lot of folks drive 335s and then move into an M3 like this and just think it's slow. And frankly, the way they drive it, it probably feels slow, because if you're only driving it in this mid-range, it is. There's not a lot of torque. You've only got 295 pound-feet of torque, and at the red line, you've got 414 horsepower. Now that's at the crank, so we're not even talking about the wheels. And hopefully they're not all doing that because there's a cop ahead and I'm just about to get arrested on camera. But yeah, there is a turnaround there, so we're gonna take that easy. But that's the E90 M3. I think this car is just so phenomenal. I think it's kind of like the last analog BMW. And that's crazy to think of, because when it came out, this was so digital. The fact that the computers in this car could calculate things so quickly, it was really earth-shattering technology at the time. But today, we look at this car as a naturally aspirated BMW with a hydraulic steering rack with all of the feel in the world. And it's just a joy to drive. So I think if you just like looking at them, that's great. It's a handsome car. It's probably one of the only Bengal cars that I actually like. We're gonna give everybody room. They didn't make this in a wagon. So in order to be, that's actually pretty cool, CRC. They didn't make any wagon M3s at the time. So the coolest kind of thing you're gonna get is going to be the sedan. And if you can get a sedan in a ZCP competition package, that's very cool. And in addition to that, if you can find it with a 6-speed manual, even though I actually don't prefer the manual, it's more valuable. If you want to go a step further, you get the speed cloth. You want to go a step further, slick top, no sunroof, and a step further, an individual color. So imagine your E90 M3 Santorini blue manual slick top speed cloth. What a car that would be. And that's where people are paying big money, up to, you know, $50,000, $60,000, maybe more if it's got low miles. But this car at about 50,000 miles with this package, I think this is a really nice driver. And you know, it's a trackable car, it's a streetable car, and it's a family sedan.